What up? How's it going? So, I really want to talk today about story forms theories and how that applies to everything. And by everything, specifically what I'm thinking of today is looking at smell. Now, smell is one of those things that a lot of people have just thought this seems like really stupid when it comes to stories and to implementation. And I agree that the way that it has been used has been just dumb. It's frankly been dumb. It's kind of like looking at early anything, though. Early 3D. It was stupid. Early games, I mean, Ralph Baer was pretty cool, and he did stuff that was fine, but it could be all over the place, you know? Early 3D, there we go. Maybe that's a better example. Early anything is generally going to suck. Let's just agree on that as a starting point. And so one thing that I would say is don't hold smell at the level of the crappiest garbage that's existed, just because a lot of things have been like, let's have fart smells, we're so cool. It's terrible. It's stupid. I'm on board with that. But smell in and of itself isn't. And what got me excited to kind of talk about and just have a video on this suddenly the day before Thanksgiving was this Linus Tech Tips video that I just watched. And basically,
it's real.
They're talking about smell-o-vision, which it was, if you're not familiar with smell-o-vision, it was an idea long ago, and there were some theaters that tried this where they had some smells that would kind of play as the movie's going on, and it was generally pretty like it wasn't something that really took off, and there's a few different reasons for that, I think, and I'm trying to remember. I think some of it was just that it was not handled that well in general. Like the most recent popular example that I think of popular would have been like, I think it was Spy Kids 4D, and it's like, you can scratch and sniff, oh, it's a fart, haha, don't you love your life? And that's just terrible. It's just terrible use of the sense of smell. It's terrible use of the medium. Smell is powerful and important. Obviously we can use it to smell, but one of the reasons why I think that smell is so powerful and could be utilized so well in storytelling is because it is the sense that is most tied to memory. And so, just as a very simple example, imagine that you're playing Half-Life 2, and every time that the G-Man comes up, there's just a very small something, and then suddenly you're looking around, and it's not a gross smell, it's just something where it's like maybe you smell a little bit of leather or something like that. Or let's say that you are playing through a game where you are doing some detective work, and you are looking for something, and then you catch a little bit of whiff of that as you get closer. Or if you are having a sneaking game, and when things get more intense, like maybe it changes that a little bit, just to alter the mood. I remember one thing that I tried doing, and I know I'm not the first person to think of this, as there's what's called wax melts, which are basically little smell things, and I used them for a D&D campaign, and so I would just have that, like, I didn't even necessarily have to have it heated, but I would just have it open and spreading some smell in the room. Now, the thing is, again, this has been implemented terribly in a lot of cases. Smell-o-vision has been, for the most part, stupid and bad, and it doesn't have to be that way. So, this video excited me, and what was, I think, most exciting to me is that he actually,
a pure gimmick.
Linus was like, hey, this is cool.
Now, there are...
And at that spot, he's not saying so. But in the beginning, he says that it was cool. And at the end, he says it was cool. You can watch the video. It's on YouTube. Here's the title. Like, you can see the title right there. So go and watch it if you want. And what I really want to talk about is how storytelling works, and how senses work with storytelling, and how people work a little bit with senses. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is I just want to look at senses in general. So most people would think, oh yeah, 5 senses, and that's not actually true. We have like 21 plus senses according to neuroscientists. So how many senses do we have? It's not just the 5. Like, I know 6 sense, people think of the movie and then they think 5 senses. We have way more senses than that. So how many senses do we have? We have plenty of senses. And I remember one of them listening to watching some QI, British trivia show. One of them is that you can hold your hand wherever and know where it is even with your eyes closed, which is very fascinating. So let's see, how many senses do we have? I've never heard of body tommy. I don't know what that is. Okay, bbc.com, that sounds fine. How many senses do we have? Yeah, in reality there may be more or fewer depending on the way you look at the question, and that's part of legitimateness. There could be a lot more. I have a weird ice cube on somebody's back. Okay, where can we just okay, so I know I've looked at some different things, more than 5, maybe 12. Here are 18, and considerable. I don't even know if that's a legitimate website. Superfoodly, okay, it's about food. How stuff works. That sounds sort of legitimate, how people work. Let's see. Doesn't give our bodies credit for all the things we can do. Yeah, so there's like all these different things. Regardless, okay, let's not worry too much about the number, but you can't really just say 5 senses. That's not really the whole story. Now, the thing is that why are senses relevant? What do senses do? Just think about it practically. They help us gather information about the world around us. They're a part of us interpreting the world. If we end up smelling fire or burning smell, then we know something must be burning. Wow, we're brilliant. If it's the same thing as, like, you know, other senses. Like if you see fire, there's fire. Oh my goodness. And you can also interpret from that you're probably going to smell burning. It's probably going to feel hot. It could probably hurt if you step into it. And you gather all this information from your senses and from using your different senses. You might say, hey, it feels cold in here. That means that the temperature is low. I'm saying some very obvious stuff, but it's just you use your senses to interpret information about the world around you. And the thing is that when it comes to storytelling, we interpret stories through our senses as well. Now, something very important to note is that when it comes to storytelling and our senses, we don't necessarily have all of our senses given to us. In real life, we have, most of us, we have smell, sight, hearing, and, you know, we're gathering that information. But when it comes to a book, for example, you're not seeing it literally. You're not hearing it literally. You're not smelling things literally. It's interpreted. And so let's get into some story forms theory right now. And there's a few different things I wanted to look at. One of them is I just wanted to pull up my dead website from long ago, storytellingphilosophy.weebly.com. You can tell it's dead because it's got .weebly at the end of it. And if we go to posts, I think it might be under glossary actually. And I go to 5 years ago. I want to look at, I had one on Smell Me a Story, and I was also looking at feeling, and I want to talk about some stuff that I learned and was looking at more with developing the theories over time. I want to talk about range of interpretation. Now, range of interpretation, it's a statement that every communication thinks to be taken anywhere between one and infinite ways. What that means is that if I tell you the sky is blue, you could take that between one and infinite ways. If I tell you my name is Josh, that's between one and infinity. Now, depending on what information I give you, there might be more reasonable interpretations of that data. So for example, over here, if I tell you that my name is Josh, that's my name. You're not going to think, oh, Josh means his name is Phil. No, there's one reasonable interpretation of my name is Josh. You could also say, well, maybe I'm going to interpret his name as Joshua. That's fine. But there's one reasonable interpretation of my name is Josh. Thus you have one interpretation. Now, if I tell you blue, what shade, what hue of blue? We don't really know. That's open to interpretation. You could interpret a range. And so you can see, I guess I should specify that this is moving from 1 to infinity, this scale here. And so we have 1 for my name is Josh, and then we're like around here for what shade, what hue for blue. Like we're just saying blue, what color of blue? It's more open interpretation. Susie walked to the store. Well, what's Susie look like? How'd she walk? What store? If we go further, it was mystical and mysterious. What was? How is it that way? More open interpretation. Thing? If I just tell you that there was something at the door, well, what thing? That could be anything. There's a wide range of interpretation. Now, again, something with this is it's 1 to infinity. What's half of infinity? I don't know. This is all theoretical, and it gets across ideas and it explains them. Where this becomes really relevant is when we move past simple range of interpretation to story forms. Now, story forms, they're called story forms, but you can use them for general communication and discussion of general communication. And basically, these are some theories that I've developed over the course of some years and just seeing, like with my multimedia experience, I'm a story coach, and I've worked in pretty much every medium you can think of. And one of the big things that I've had the experience to do is to see how all these different media work and to look at them from a creative perspective. I mean, yeah, I've taken in them, but I've also worked in them so that I'm like, okay, well, how does this work? So, of course, if we look at it as the kind of, this isn't really the general 5 senses, but these are 5 senses. So the way that I've got this grouped, and again, I want to go back and say there are more senses than this, so we could break things up more. We've got sight, sound, smell, feelings, and time. And so, again, there are more senses than that. But if we start with that as a baseline, and we go back to looking at blue, I'm going to open these up in separate tabs. So when we look at blue, what shade, what hue? One of the things that we can go and look at with that is, hey, if it's blue, if it's the color blue, that's sight. You don't feel the color blue, you see the color blue. And so with this, with blue here, we have a range of interpretation, but it's particularly pertaining to sight, to the way things look. So if we go back over here now, story forms. And here, you know what? I'll just, I'll pop this over here. So range of interpretation, this should probably be flipped. I'm not going to worry about it. So over here we've got sight. And so this is what things look like and your range of interpretation for that. So we've got examples like you could see a house, you could see dogs, trees, you could see a smile, you could see light. Sound, it could be the sound of laughter, sirens, dripping, talking. Smell, Yep, smell, since we started there. Perfume, candy, burning, salt, feelings. Like, in this case, I want to be clear is that when it comes to stories, we can't, feelings are a response to stimuli. Feelings are not the stimuli. I cannot technically make you feel a certain way. I can make the area cold, make you feel cold, but I can't make you feel sad. I can create situations. I can present stimuli that you might feel sad in response to, but as far as this goes, story forms, we're talking about physical feelings. So this could be warmth, the carpet, pain, warm water. Again, this is not talking about emotion, this is physical feeling. And then we have the passage of time, and this is critical for understanding different media and separating them. So we've got motion, stillness, minutes, seconds, hours. So, for example, when you're reading a book, how long is a line of dialogue? It might be 1 second, it might be 5 seconds. Do I have any book right here with me? No, I don't. But let's say that you're reading a book and it's just, there's a line in there and it's like, how are you doing today? Great writing, grade A, you're gonna win some sort of prize. So if you have that, one reader could read it very quickly, but interpret it as being a very long conversation or very slowly spoken. Another person could read it much more slowly and yet interpret it as being quicker. This is a matter of range of interpretation. You are taking that data, you're taking the book, and you're interpreting a different length of time. Now, if that conversation is had between two people, well, what do they look like? That's one thing. Sound is also a part of this, because what's the tone? What's the voice sound like? This is open to interpretation. We have smell of, depending on where they are. If they're out in a field, what does the field smell like? Feelings. Is it warm outside? Is it cold outside? Like, what's the feeling? Is it inside? We don't know. Time, and we already discussed time. So you've got all of these senses, and you're discussing them all. And you can have a very short piece, and you can interpret from all these different senses, and more, because again, there are more than just these senses. Now, these here, interpretations, these are really critical for differentiating different media. And I think, I might not get into them in this video. If it's something you're interested in for another video, let me know. You can also find this stuff on joshpaulson.com, and I've got literally like hours upon hours of free content. Probably should be selling more of it, but it's all free, so go get it. But here we've got, let's just ignore everything else. We got senses. We got sight, smell, all that. I just want to not worry about the other stuff for now. So when we look at all of this, we can say, okay, so we can use these different senses to tell a story. And it's not really that we're using the senses to tell a story, it's that people can interpret these senses as part of a story. In real life, we have all these senses, and we have more senses. Again, it's groupings. We have a bunch of senses in real life. And so when it comes to storytelling, we can have people interpret sensory data in all those different areas. And so I guess what I would like to say as a next step is, there's a few different thoughts running through my head right now. One of them is that we have this assumption, and it's true, that as technology improves, we will generally be going more and more towards the one section over here. We are going to be looking at how can we make our stories less open to interpretation. Now, maybe that sounds bad. I don't mean that in a bad way. Just that we're going to be naturally looking and going, okay, so we've got this here. We've got all this technology. We have the technology. We have the smell-o-vision now. We have, perhaps we have, we've obviously got VR that adds a little bit more granularity. We've got stuff where we're trying to add physical feeling to different stories and games. And so the thing is, we're kind of trying to move towards one interpretation. We're trying to move closer to reality. In reality, there's only one interpretation of reality that we can each have, really. So for example, when I look at the camera right now, the camera looks a certain way. I can't interpret it as being pink because it's not. I can interpret my pink pop filter as being pink around the edge because it is in fact pink around the edge. So there's reasonable interpretation. In real life, you have one range of interpretation, basically, or you have one interpretation of reality. And by that, again, I'm talking physical. I'm talking like in the physical sense, where we can have that information. And sure, I might not know exactly what materials or what atoms that my pink pop filter is constructed of, but I can interpret basic information to make a reasonable interpretation. I think it's fair to say one interpretation. That others would share having similar information. Again, I think that you could get into some granularity with that and make some arguments there, but what I'm trying to get at here is that we have all of these different senses, all of these different ways to interpret reality, and all of those we seek to apply to storytelling. And so smell is just a natural step because, again, with technology, we're kind of all looking to move to this one. We're looking to move closer to reality. This is the same as graphics getting better. When graphics get better, we are trying to move sight over from infinity to 1 so that it's more realistic, more believable, so that people don't look like big cubes. So what's this all have to do with smell? What's this all have to do with the future and storytelling? Basically, the first thought that I have is, that's the phone, is not to assume, I'm hoping that it's not like some weird caller name that comes up. Okay. That's fine. Basically, when it comes to all of these senses, we have them all in reality. We're naturally going to seek to have them in stories. I would say don't dismiss anything just because it's been done poorly. That's really number one. It's the same thing as really like, and here I'm going to bring my little notepad thing. It's the same heckin' thing as when people have really stupid video games and then it's like, oh hey, all video games must be stupid. No, it's just that there's stupid video games. That doesn't mean all video games are stupid. Very different. So don't assume that because something is done poorly that it's a bad idea. I think this is really important. There's a lot of stuff that's done heckin' crappy, and that doesn't mean that it's always a bad idea. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's bad because it's a bad idea, but sometimes it's just really poorly implemented. And so that's one of the things that I just kind of want to express here. Another one is that we're always moving technologically towards one potential interpretation, which isn't good or bad. This is just kind of a part of life, a part of technology. This is just kind of how we do. This is part of being human. We're like, hey, let's make it more realistic. Making it more realistic is part of this. When you have a cartoon style, you're saying, well, you know, and there's a few different interpretations of this, but one of them is that when you have a cartoon art style, you're saying, hey, it's real life, but you're kind of leaving things a little bit open to interpretation so people can take that art style in different directions as far as reality. I hope that makes sense. So I feel like I probably need to keep moving forward here, but the key here is that when it comes to smell, a lot of people would think this is stupid. It doesn't have a point. And my kind of response to that would be, is that true in reality? When we think about the potential of a sense in story, we have to consider the potential of that sense in reality, because reality is a story happening now. And so I want to get that across, and this is, I think, kind of my big thing is I don't want anything to be underestimated, but also to see story potential, to see fiction potential, see reality. And that's going off the page, but that's fine. So if you're ever like, well, could this have any use in fiction? I'd say look at reality. Because that's the thing, is that when it comes to, oh, come on, don't do this to me. If you really are looking for how effective something could be in your story, in your fiction setting, see if it's any use in reality. If it sucks in reality, then it sucks. Probably. If it sucks in fiction, it might just be that it's bad usages. It might not be that it's not a good idea in reality. One of the things that I think is big for smell is just how closely tied it is to memory. And here's where I want to bring up my really old article here from my dead website, storytellingphilosophy.weebly.com. Oh, and I got links to like my old stuff. What? Wait, did somebody at me? Because that's not me. There's another person. Wait, it's grabbing it from another person named Joshua Paulison. That guy's not a real legit person. See, look, this is my website, I swear. See, look, that's my face. That's my beautiful face. I don't know why it's showing somebody else's Twitter feed. That upsets me, actually. That's not me. Okay, mine is Josh Paulison. I'm upset. Let's see. Smell is extremely powerful. Researchers like Larson who study behavior have found a tight connection between smell, emotion, and memory. It takes many trials to get people to associate some visual cue with negative feedback like an electric shock. When we do this for odors, it takes just a few pairings, 2 or 3, even 1, for the system to react very strongly the next time you sense an odor, Lundstrom says. What this is saying is that if we want to create if we want to impact emotions in story rapidly, that it might be much more effective than even if you have like a pop-up on screen telling you something went wrong. It might even be more powerful emotionally than a shock, a sensation when we get there. This might actually be the most powerful sense for storytelling. Maybe that seems a bit dramatic, and for storytelling, that's a strong way to put it. What I'm thinking is, depending on your goals, I should say, depending on your goals, this may be the most powerful sense for storytelling. Like, that's huge. Why we can have BBC Future makes a good point that could explain why we can have a hard time considering smell for storytelling. And I will say, when I even first released this, I had some people being like, "What are you doing, Josh? Like, this is like," I had some people being like, "This is stupid," but I don't think it is. We do not have names for the smells we can differentiate, and this is part of the problem with communicating smells. Smell is perhaps the smell we are least used to talking about. We are good at describing how things look or telling how things sounded, but with smells we're reduced to labeling them according to things they are associated with, like smells like summer meadows or smells like wet dog. That's from BBC Future. So we describe things not by how they smell, but by how they created the smell. And so I think that in a way it can almost feel like it's delegitimizing the sense a little bit, because if we don't even have the words to describe it, do we actually care at all? And I think that one thing to note is I'd be interested to study different languages more and to see if any of them have much more words for smelling, because this is, I mean, we're speaking English, so it could just be a language limitation. Something else that I find interesting here is smell-o-vision. Like, you're probably familiar with that, especially if you're watching this. There were some other ones as well. There was the O-phone. I was really hoping, the Linus Tech Tips video just mentioned 2 gimmicks. Like, one of them, it's like fart smell, and that's just the thing that just bugs me a lot, because I'm like, seriously, every time it's like when people are like, "Oh, ukulele, I'm gonna play something stupid." It's like, quit delegitimizing ukulele as an instrument. Ukulele is a beautiful heckin' instrument, and bugs me. It's the same thing as this. Like, every time that people use it in a stupid way, you're delegitimizing the potential of it, and that's part of what bothers me. Okay, so smell-o-vision. Then there was the O-phone as well on Indiegogo. I was hoping that would get a notice, because that was, I don't think that they actually got all the funding that they wanted. Let's see here. Indiegogo, Project O-phone. And that was part of what inspired me to, well, I was interested in making the post anyway, but then I was looking up some things with it, and I was like, that's cool. Yeah, they didn't even get a third of their goal quite, which is, that's a bummer. I would love to see more stuff about that. So yeah, I just, again, I think that there's a few things that I really want to focus in on here. And here, I'm going to move this over here. Like, don't assume that because something is done poorly that it's a bad idea. Just because smell has been done poorly doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. Also, we're always moving technologically towards one potential interpretation. So, like it or not, we're going to get there. And the third thing is, reality is a story happening. So, that's kind of relevant for number 4. To see fiction potential, see reality. So if you ever have a doubt about, could this work in our video game, could this work in our story, I would say think about, how does it work in reality. Now, if you're interested in me talking more about story forms and getting into range of interpretation and stuff, let me know. I kind of made this video on a whim because this is something I'm passionate about, and I just feel like I need to put something out there about it because this is not talked about near enough. And it makes me sad, and I feel like this is important. And really understanding how different media work, that's something that I'm hugely passionate about, because people just work in whatever medium they're most comfortable in. It doesn't seem like anybody's, and I know that's an exaggeration, there's going to be people who are, but it seems like a lot of people aren't thinking about what's the best medium to tell my story. It's just, I work in this medium, I'll tell a story here. Oh, it doesn't do what I want. I'm going to try to make it match the medium that I'm most comfortable with, or that's most popular today, and that's sad to me. I think that we are far from the potential of storytelling that we could be, and that's a rant for another time. So thanks so much for watching. If you're curious why there's a big gap above me, I stream on Twitch every, well, right now it's every Sunday and Friday, and I might add another day for some experimental stuff. I don't know. Thanks for watching. Feel free to post any comments below, and yeah, ask any questions, and you can check out my website, joshpaulson.com, for, again, way too much free story stuff. I probably should charge for more of it. Have a fantastic day, and take care. And now I need to find my Streamlabs. Where is Streamlabs? Where did I put that? I'm recording with it. There we go.